Hier schon mal ein Mikrofon. So. You will need to share them and they're open attention. So what you're saying now? So we're going to start in 5 minutes. We're still waiting for 3 people that might be stuck in the traffic jam, but then we're going to have our morning session with a very interesting discussion. So I will go downstairs, and if they haven't arrived yet, we will just start. Hello, dear friends. Hello, dear fans. Hello, dear journalists. Thank you very much for being here at this grand final of the Eurovisions conference here in Lisbon. We have had 3 exciting days, well, up to now 2, 2.5, because the excitation is still there here, as you might notice on stage. And today is going to be such an exciting grand final because we have so many interesting finalists here on the sofa. And what we are going to talk today about is not love, love, peace, peace, but we are going to put a little bit of fuego in the discussion and talk about the very different interests that the stakeholders in Eurovision might have and where they are sometimes bumping into each other and causing some friction. But as for a good Eurovision grand final, how does it have to start? With the anthem. So we're going to sing together. La 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 la. So there was no money for pyro, but we are very happy to have. So we're going to go into this. I'm very happy to welcome on our sofas, on our Eurovision sofas, Dr. Frank-Dieter Freiling, Director of International Affairs of ZDF German Television and head of the Eurovision Song Contest Reference Group. Thank you for being here. We have Thomas Gesson, the famous songwriter who participated almost as often as Vasyl in the Eurovision Song Contest and wrote the winning song of 2012, Euphoria, an international hit. Thank you for being here. We have Ricardo Duarte, writing for the website www.desset.pt. Sophia, why did you write Desset? This is novel. Okay. Why? In fact, it should be 12. No, not 19. Anyway, as a representative of the fan community, we have Alon Amir, former head of the Israeli head of press of the Israeli delegation, not only of the Israeli delegation, of various delegations, and author of a new book about the Eurovision Song Contest. So this is the commercial break, really ahead of the show, but so this is done. We have Vasyl Myroshnychenko from Ukraine, partner of CFC Consulting, who did the nation branding for Ukraine back in 2005, and for Georgia some years later. And we have Thorsten Keller, news editor at the Kölner Stadtanzeiger, and a big soccer fan. So let's start with Dr. Freiling. So the Eurovision Song Contest was created as an annual opportunity for the international broadcasters, for the member broadcasters of the EBU to cooperate once a year. But at the beginning, there was, in paragraph 1, there was the aim of the contest was to promote high quality songs in the field of popular music by encouraging competition among artists, songwriters, and composers. And since 2004, we don't have a name anymore. We have just an explanation. The contest is an international co-production by member broadcasters of the EBU as part of the television program exchange known as EBU, as Eurovision. So has the Eurovision Song Contest become a show without a purpose?
I think it has become a show that doesn't need an explanation. The world was a different one in the 50s when indeed there were very few occasions. I think it was the Queen's coronation, which was the first effort where really networks got together to broadcast all of this. And then the song contest was a few years later, where really at that time a small group of networks tried to show that they can do something beyond borders, which is something that nowadays is a given for every small sports event. You have dozens of networks coming together, but then it was a huge step of cooperation between countries and in getting the technical side to it. But this is not a technical exercise anymore, as it was maybe in the beginning, to show that nations can cooperate and networks can cooperate. Nowadays, it's the biggest entertainment event by far in Europe, and it's the time when, for 1 week, Europe really lets aside the nitty-gritty of cooperation between countries and regions and political agendas and focuses on music. And I think that is self-explanatory by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, the aim of encouraging cultural development in the field of music is not contradictory. So why was it just cancelled?
No, it wasn't cancelled, but everyone does rebranding, and I think that was one period where there was just the attempt to make it a little bit shorter and clearer and more obvious. And I think at that time nobody saw the need for further explanation because Eurovision has grown up.
Okay.
Nothing has changed on that agenda other than that.
Okay, so you would still say that the Eurovision Song Contest is a music competition?
What else would you see it?
Well, it's an exchange platform for European broadcasters on know-how, on...
No, this is a competition on music. I mean, there is always a more obvious or more hidden side agenda, which is sometimes more explicit, some years more explicit than in others. I mean, there was a lot of debate when we were in Azerbaijan. There was a lot of debate last year in Ukraine. There are other stories that come up in different years, but most and foremost, this is a music competition of Europe.
Mm-hmm. But the EBU is doing workshops for their member broadcasters, how to do it properly.
No, but this is about the national pre-selections. I mean, we really try to encourage to make the maximum out of the brand. I think it is it is a shame if a participating, no, it's not a shame, but because it has many reasons. There's also a question of budget, of possibilities, of broadcasting time. But in general, I mean, if you have a brand like the Eurovision Song Contest that gives you amazing ratings once a year, why not try to expand that brand as much as possible to the profit of your network? And that's why we encourage the participating networks to think about national pre-selections. I mean, we don't need to quote and go into detail about how the Nordics, for example, do it, who really have a national branding for their network. Austria did the same. They really take the national pre-selection process as part of their public remit of showing we are part of this country, part of this nation, and you are all part of it. So they maximize the output for a public broadcaster out of this, and then it leads into this final week where they show the 3 shows as a conclusion and as a follow-up to their national process. I think that is if you want to be commercial for a moment, that is in the idealistic sense the perfect line of how you carry a brand from beginning to end and get great ratings and moral value out for your network.
So there are 43 national broadcasters involved in this show, just as competing broadcasters. But in the reference group, there is a small number of people deciding, steering taking the important decisions on the future of the contest. So is it difficult to enforce what you decided among the other broadcasters?
Well, it's not difficult because there are the rules, and the rules have to be accepted. So in that sense, the Eurovision Song Contest is quite autocratic because the function of the steering group, and I mean, it's going to be renamed because it's a title that has been there for a long time, but never been really clear. From this summer, it will be the board of the song contest, and that makes it very clear what the function of the board is to supervise the song contest as a brand and as also a financial operation and an entity. And we have a fair mix. It's basically half and half. The former executive producers, so we have the show experience, the technical experience included in the board, and then we have elected from the 43 every 2 years 3 representatives from the countries, and then we have someone like me who is a neutral, who is not, our network is not involved, so like a neutral chairman who has no interests on its own, and we can add a couple more people if we like, or if we need expertise to supervise.
You are head of the reference group for a couple of years, I think since 2008? Since Oslo. So since 2010. So it's, 8 years now, and it seems that your work has become more and more difficult. So what are for you the biggest challenges in your work in the reference group?
That we have a new winner every year. I think that's the biggest challenge of the song contest. I mean, you cannot do any planning up till Sunday morning. And then you basically have a summer break, and then you have de facto 10 months left until the next final is there, unavoidably. And that puts a great pressure on the winner. Because the starting conditions for every network, regarding how rich or poor or developed, or whether it's a state broadcaster or a public broadcaster, it's always a challenge because you cannot prepare for that moment. And then you have a deadline and a clock that's ticking against you. And that's the biggest challenge we face every year.
Okay, so this is not only going to be an interview situation, we want to go into discussion, but first of all, I try to introduce everyone here on the sofa. So let's move on now to Thomas Gesson, who is a composer, and originally the song contest was about composers. It was a composing competition. So you have written so many songs. Did you do it because you just wanted to enter Eurovision, or was it with a commercial purpose in first?
Well, from start, of course, I just wrote the songs, and I just like writing songs, and it happened to be that they were chosen in Sweden to start with the Melodifestivalen, and I have never really had this aim that I should go to Melodifestivalen or Eurovision. It just happens to be like it, kind of. But from beginning, it was so fun to write all these different kind of songs. So I wrote songs. Now it's more like when I write songs outside Sweden, it's most of the time they contact me and say, "Would you like to write a song for this artist?" And I like that challenge to write to different artists and see if I can solve the situation.
So how does this cooperation work? I mean, you have worked with so different nations like Georgia, Malta, Cyprus, and they have all different structures within the broadcasters. They have all different cultural background. So how do you adapt to the different situations?
I like the differences, and it's interesting to see the differences from the show and the whole process, because I'm used with the Swedish way, and it's a very big contest and everything. And in other countries, it's not the same, and they do it in a different way. They think of it of the songs in different ways, and I like the difference to write a song for Spain. It's like completely different to what I should write in Sweden, and in the other countries they are more focused on Eurovision. In Sweden we have the Melody Festival in first place, and then Eurovision.
So what do you prefer, to have first the challenge of winning a national final and then go to Eurovision, or?
I like both. I like diversity. I like sometimes pre-selection in Sweden, and sometimes write for a certain artist.
Okay. You have written so many successful Eurovision entries that are watched and rewatched and re-rewatched on YouTube. So your songs have millions of clicks. So you must be a wealthy man with all the royalties you get from YouTube, aren't you?
From YouTube, yeah, absolutely. No, fortunately not. But
why not?
Because the YouTube is not paying anything.
Where's the money going?
Yeah, we all wonder.
You don't make a lot of money from royalties, I know that.
No, on YouTube. No. It's a shame.
Okay. So maybe Dr. Freiling can say something about that?
No. We are not involved with the music business side of it. That's up to every national delegation how they set it up and how they arrange it.
Okay. Do you feel that all the national broadcasters are supporting you in the same way as a composer?
No, it's a bit different, but they seem to be very nice people, and I haven't met any being treated badly in some way. I haven't, no.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just thinking about it. It's a pity that are Timo and Mihkel arrived? No. The two composers of La Forza were supposed to be here with us, and they qualified. And I heard that the Estonian broadcaster is not so fond of the idea of winning the contest. Did you feel sometimes that they wanted your song to be successful, but not so successful?
No, I haven't. No, I never been into that feeling. I think all countries want to win. I think so.
I can add something to
Yeah.
that. You have a mic? Thank you, Dr. Freiling. Hello. So when we did Eurovision, I did Eurovision quite a few times. One time I was told by our TV broadcaster, do well, just not do well. I mean, it's fine, do well, but not do well. But I was sitting in the Estonian committee this year. I was helping them to choose the song. And Mart specifically told me, we want to win. So, and they sent a really good song and they have a chance, so why not? And Estonia is a beautiful place.
So, since you have the microphone, let's go on with Alon Amir. So, as a head of press, do you have any possibilities to steer the outcome of the contest with your press work?
Yeah, I would say that in 2009 we sent a really political song with Noah and Mira Awad, an Israeli and an Arab, Palestinian Israeli. It was right after a war, so it was seen as a gimmick, but it wasn't. They've been working together 10 years before that. We did 300 interviews to foreign media without living the country, and I have to say that I think it wasn't really a Eurovision entry. It was just a good song, but not really Eurovision entry. And we managed to qualify, which was a surprise. We didn't expect that. And we managed to get fairly good results. However, what we were proud of was the interviews for the Arabic media, which we did a lot. And it's not just to steer the results, it was the reactions that we got from the Arab countries and Arab people about this message and about Israel, and it changed the perception of how people see Israel. And you know, I'm part of the peace process thing, and I really want the region to be quiet and for everyone to live together. So the most emotional thing was to get the reaction from people from Iran and Syria and Lebanon to say, we didn't know that you have people like that in Israel that support the peace process, and that was the most emotional thing. And we got the support of Sir Paul McCartney. And once you have that, we don't care about winning. Paul McCartney is behind us. We don't care about the Eurovision anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, there are other...
You know what I mean, come on. We knew we wouldn't win, so at least we have the support of Paul McCartney.
Yeah, some other delegations might not take it in this idealistic way. In your book, you're insinuating that there are delegations who are using bribery just to try to buy votes.
It's gonna kill me. I'll tell you a story, which I've heard last week, actually, for the first time. Allegedly, I wasn't there, so I'll say I heard it from the manager of an Israeli artist. A few years ago, I won't say which artist was that and where it was. They allegedly discovered a day before the semifinal that some countries have allegedly swapped points, and they wanted to withdraw. And the Israeli Broadcasting Authority didn't allow it. So they had to go with the participation, and we didn't qualify. Now, maybe we didn't qualify because it wasn't good enough. That also can happen. But yeah, there are some countries that in the past had done that. Most of them don't qualify, don't do well. So I don't get it. It did happen in the past. I haven't been offered in quite a long time, so I don't know if it's happening now. But it's always the good songs that are winning. And it's really, I mean, to my opinion, I'm sorry, it's the good songs that supposed to win. And they are winning. I mean, Portugal last year, it was fantastic. And Ukraine, it was a brilliant victory. And Sweden, of course, both times well-deserved winners. So, you know.
Okay, so the reference group is also responsible for sanctioning misbehavior among the broadcasters. Did you ever have to sanction bribery?
No, and I would never even think the idea after what Alon said that if Israel ever wins, it would be because they swapped the points the right way, but because it would be an excellent song. No, I mean there is so much talk and so much rumor, and I can understand that the pressure is on some participants, maybe because they are not 100% convinced to see what else is there possible. There is always going to be some kind of neighborhood voting. I mean, there was a reason for a war between Germany, Austria, and Switzerland on the behavior, how they not give votes to their neighbors. And other areas do it. There, certain countries will always happen, but we have done so many runs through the voting system. We have, just for the fun of it and for our own knowledge, excluded all of these votes. We have looked at specific regions and all of this. It never alters the outcome. I mean, in that sense, what Alon said, if there is a good song, if there are good songs, they will win.
In order to win, sorry for jumping in, if you ever decide, if it's happening, to swap points, those extra 50, 60 points won't do you anything. You have to get points from every single country. So first of all, you need to have a really, really good song and a really good performance. And if you don't have that, even if you allegedly do that, it won't do you any good. So first of all, you have to have a good song and a good singer.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that we really can insist on, despite the image, I mean, the cab driver here, you ask him and say, oh, but they do all the neighbors cheat for each other, vote for each other. It is not relevant for the outcome. It doesn't matter, and it's always there, and there's always a laugh when you see the points coming in from juries or from now in the combined votes where they go for a neighbor. It does not matter. There is no grouping big enough that even whatever the 9 former Yugoslav countries or whatever, it does not, the Nordics, it does not matter. You need to have an overall support from the juries and overall support from the public vote to really make it to the top. And then you can be lucky, like Ukraine 2 years ago, when you have 2 other front runners blocking each other because the jury loves one song, the public loves another, and then you have a laughing third one who has the most 10 points and then comes up to the top. That's the excitement of the new voting procedure. But you have to be at the top, and everything else is just a bit the farmer of the song contest, but not the reality.
Okay, so I take the opportunity to welcome Thomas Schreiber from Norddeutscher Rundfunk, the head of entertainment of ARD and the executive producer of the Eurovision Song Contest 2011 in Düsseldorf. So your predecessor, Jörg Meyer-Beer, now Jörg Meyer-Rehse, he enforced a lot of changings in the routes. For example, he gathered people who also wanted televoting introduced in the song contest, and only televoting, because he told in an interview that he was definitely approached by the Russian delegation, that they offered him, asked him what can they do to make the Russian song win back in 2000. Now in 2008, the public vote was balanced with the jury again. So what was the position of NDR after it was NDR that had enforced the televoting before?
You should ask Jürgen Meyer-Beer about it, because I'm responsible for it since 2008 or 2009 to be precise. But I think it's, from my knowledge, I learned that the televote and the jury vote might differ quite a lot. So there was a German swing singer, Roger Cicero, performing in Helsinki, and the jury vote in those days was the backup vote, as we know. And due to his musical performance, he was voted the best by the juries, but that didn't matter for the televoting. In my knowledge, I think the mixture of 50-50% is quite good, because the criteria for the audience in the countries that are voting and for the juries, as long as the principle, what are the criteria that are relevant to give points, are enforced, I think it's good, because you have to have a good musical performance. You might matter to the audience. I will always remember Poland in Copenhagen. They had some big arguments with making butter and all the rest of it. It was very cheesy, and I think it came number 2 on the televote. But the juries asked to differ, and they decided totally different. So I think it's a good balance between two different points of view.
Mm. In Germany, you have a particular situation because ARD is a federal broadcaster with several TV broadcasters in the different regions of Germany. And well, you have been struggling to get the support sometimes in terms of promoting the national entry. How important is it for the ARD to take part in Eurovision if the other broadcasters are not supporting you so much?
For the ARD network, you have to make a difference between radio and TV. And some people in the so-called new and young radio waves or departments think that they own the taste of music, and they are the music policy or the music police of Germany. This is relevant, this is credible, this is hip, whatever. And success in Germany is not always valued highly. So to be very successful, popular, like Helene Fischer, does not give you necessarily credibility. This is totally different with the TV department. The TV department supports Eurovision very strongly because Eurovision is the biggest show in Germany over the year. So in entertainment values, Eurovision is always able to get an audience between 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 million viewers per year, depending on how the Germans do it and where it takes place. But in that respect, it's the music taste of the radio that you're talking about, and I'm talking about TV, and TV is my profession.
In the German newspapers and in the public discussion, if our result is not satisfying, there's always the same discussion. Germany is paying so much and we don't get votes. We should withdraw. So what makes you still go on?
It's very simple. We had to change the system. In my experience, the responsible guys at the music labels saw Eurovision as a promotion platform for their artists, and they never thought about what's the specifics of Eurovision, and those were two different perspectives. And when I struggled the last couple of years, it was how I get rid of the labels, and that's what we did. So we're doing now our German selection without labels, and the Eurovision Song Contest is a song contest of composers. So we started working much more intensive, or we intensified our work with the publishers and did a lot of talk and songwriting camps and stuff like that, and we will intensify it over the next years. We are promoting much more than we did in the past, and we're doing it in the end without the music, who anyway don't have a word with what's going on in music industry, in my experience. So in that respect, I think the future will be a little bit different for us because we are more able to act freely than we have been in the past.
Been part of the reference group for some years. Now ARD has no representative in the reference group in a period where very important decisions are taken. Is this difficult for you to accept what the reference group is deciding sometimes?
No, because I believe in democracy. I might not like it, but if it's a majority, and I think there is a rationale behind it as well. And the quality of the decision in the reference group depends on the quality of the people who are elected into the reference group. And there have been people who have been elected who were, let's say, reading newspapers during meetings, and there were people who were very active. So in the end, it's the decision of all the heads of delegations who are voting for people to become a member of the reference group. You have very good, very, very strong working members of the reference group, and you have some who you don't need, I would say. I'm talking about the past anyway. But
So
I
you're happy
believe in
with
the
your reference
principle.
group?
I believe in the principle of the reference group, and I believe in representative democracy.
Okay, so you're happy with your reference group now?
No, I mean, I completely support what Thomas said. It's democracy, and it's up to the heads of delegation of every other year. In this case, 43 among themselves to elect 3. And I mean, it's not. There was no German standing in the last few elections, so it's not even that they were not elected, but there was no candidate. You can only do vote on people, and usually they run 8 or 3 are elected, and that's how democracy works.
Yeah, but are there some campaigns in the background where people are saying, vote for me in the reference group, and then I will do this and that?
I don't know. I think it's not. You don't get any money for it. It takes a lot. It's a great pleasure to do, but this is hard work. No, I don't think so. I appreciate the initiative of heads of delegations because we meet at least 5, 6, 7 times during the year for 2 days. So it takes a lot of your time. It takes a lot of funding for the network to pay the expenses. And then you have to be up to date on the different challenges each year. So it's not a pleasurable job. It's a challenge. And I'm glad that people are running and are willing to do it. Whether there could be others or better, I mean, this is the same when you have when you have audience vote. Do the audience always pick the best one? Debatable.
So in the last year, you had to deal with lots of political issues in the reference group. The EBU is always claims that the Eurovision Song Contest is a non-political event. So now I would like to talk to Vasyl Myroshnychenko from CFC Consulting, who did the nation branding campaign for Ukraine. Do you think that the contest where countries give votes to each other can be unpolitical?
Yes and no. Thing is that we have to understand that over 200 million people are watching the finals of the Eurovision Song Contest. So it's a unique opportunity for any hosting country to really send a positive message to the people watching, to all the journalists who are visiting. And at the end of the day, what is nation branding? Nation branding is actually a tool of public diplomacy, which is aiming at portraying a positive image of a country. So what if it's not the television, right, which is helping to amplify the message, to welcome tourists, not maybe necessarily the foreign direct investors, but nation branding is about foreign direct investment or promoting export. So I would see the Eurovision Song Contest more of a cultural diplomacy, more of a tourism beacon mechanism. And it's natural that nations, especially smaller nations, try to use it as an opportunity, because I think like Germany probably wouldn't bother with using Eurovision Song Contest as a nation branding tool. However, if you host a World Cup, football World Cup, that's a good opportunity because it's a different scale. But for a country like Ukraine, which hosted Eurovision twice, and my company had an opportunity to work as PR advisors to the National Organizing Committee, we thought, okay, now it's an opportunity to tell about Ukraine, so we should. And also small nations do it. So at the end of the day, I think it's natural that that countries do it. And frankly, from the very beginning, when we initiated Ukraine's entry into the Eurovision Song Contest in the year 2002, my business partner, Gennady Kurochka, it was his idea. We were all students of international relations, having worked in strategic communications and public affairs. We actually had no background in music whatsoever, but our goal was very simple. The goal was like, if we can get into the contest, we can probably win it. If we win it, we can host it. So it took us 2 years, basically. We worked with Alexander Ponomarev in 2003 in Riga, and next year we designed and implemented the marketing strategy for Ruslan in 2004. And then we worked and hosted. Later in 2007, we were hired by Georgia to help them with communications around their debut entry. And then we also worked with other artists like Anya Lorak and Mika Newton and others, and also last year for the Eurovision in Ukraine. But you see, speaking of politics and Eurovision, what are the songs that people are singing? Songs are the reflection of what people feel, what they live through. So it's pretty natural that the songs or the events around it is what we live through. We cannot say that this is only music and this is so, it's not linked to our lives. If Israel is at war with its neighbors, I mean, naturally they have an issue, so they're going to talk about it, right?
Almost every year.
Every year. Look, if Armenia and Azerbaijan have a military conflict, they're going to talk about it. If Russia attacked Ukraine, Ukraine is going to talk about it. So it's natural that during the Second World War, many songs were inspired by the countries fighting the evil Axis by actually fighting Nazism. So it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, but it's a difference of if you send a song talking about the horrible things that happened to the Tatarians on the Crimea in World War II, or if you're having the Ukrainian president on stage giving a special prize of the Ukrainian government, because there you have a directly political force using the Eurovision stage for his own purposes. So would EBU allow this again nowadays? That the president of a state
it happened in 2005.
In 2005, yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, probably at that time you have to remember that Ukraine just gone through the Orange Revolution, and the president of Ukraine didn't really need the publicity within the country or anywhere else. And as you know, his reputation plummeted ever since 2005, and he actually lost the elections big time 5 years later. But it was generally, you see, for us, it was the first victory of the Eurovision in 2004. It was a big thing. It coincided with the Orange Revolution in Ukraine. And in a way, we wanted to send a positive message that Ukraine is welcoming guests. By the way, at that time, we advised Ukrainian president to lift visas for the Europeans, because before that, all Europeans had to get a visa, to apply for a visa to come to Ukraine. So, you know, it boosted tourism into the country, because once the visas were lifted temporarily, then they were extended indefinitely. So all people from Europe, then also North America and Japan, they didn't need a visa anymore. So we've seen a big surge of tourism and people interested in Kiev, and they wanted to come. And now also later on we hosted the Euro 2012, and then we had again the Eurovision last year, and in 2 weeks' time we're going to be hosting the finals of the League of Champions, the Football League of Champions. So therefore we've seen that it has all worked, and the Eurovision was a big part of that trend to, you know, public diplomacy tool for the country.
Mm-hmm. So the EBU is, and the reference group is taking care that there are no political contents in the songs. But how can you judge if a metaphor or an image used in a song is political or not?
Well, there's no general rule. You have to apply it case by case. We had a long debate internally about the Ukrainian entry. You compare it with other presidents before. In that case, it was clearly a historic reference that was not disputed by anyone. It was not disputed by the Russians, by Ukraine, by anyone. It's a historical fact. Look, if you nowadays have a song that says love for everyone, it's, I think, the most political statement you can do. It's a concept for whole philosophies and for whole society systems behind that statement. So one way or the other, everything is political or nothing is political, and we are very clear. I mean, there were entries that had commercial brands. Facebook was one in it, where we clearly say no, we're not allowing promotion of any brand in any of the songs, even if it's a critical approach. We are very careful to make sure that there is no slur, that there is no verbal or racial slip, even when it comes to singing, because sometimes, as you know, if you write something, it reads perfectly. If you sing it very fast, it sounds completely different and gets a different meaning. We had a couple of cases in that in the past. Things like that, we're very careful. There is no obscenity. I mean, we have broadcasters, BBC at the front, but others too, who are extremely careful that they will have a problem with their license if they would have obscenities in a song. I mean, it's not all about politics. It's a whole array commercial, verbal that we pay attention to, and then you do it case by case. And every year we look at the text and the audio of songs and see, is there a problem, and try to make sure it is not.
Mm-hmm. So I take the opportunity now to welcome our guests from Estonia, Mihkel, Mattisen, and Timo, Vendt.
Hello.
So first of all, congratulations for passing through the first final. Yeah. So I had a good party last night.
Yes.
We went to Euroclub, but that's not the reason we are late. We were giving the wrong address, so sorry.
No problem. So we had just had a talk with Thomas, who is called regularly by various delegations to write their songs or to revamp them. You always have to pass through a national final before you can go to Eurovision. Do you envy him?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Of course, in Estonia, it's try to follow the Melody Festival. This is only thing what we check every year, and of course Estonia is so small country. There is only like 1 million Estonian, and we try to do same performance, same party like Melody Festival, and that's why this is the case where we try to follow it.
So in terms of commercial success of making a living of your composing work, how important is Eurovision?
For Estonia, it's really important. This is the only way where musicians and songwriters and producers can show their work. Only way, and then that's why if there is a date where the songs must be ready, every year there is 280 songs, and this is really big number, such a small country.
I heard all of them this year. I heard all of them.
Cool. Absolutely. I think this is the most important event in the year in music side.
So you're also, that's the second time that you attend the Eurovision circus,
Yeah,
let's say.
Both are,
Yeah.
Well,
with different songs. Then you entered before.
I entered 2013 in Malmö
with Birgit, and next year Timo participated with Tanya, and now we're together. We worked together for like 20 years, so we were really happy that finally we come here together. So in the last 5 years, it's a third time for us when we combine our entries.
So is Eurovision also important for you as a cooperation platform?
Yes, it is. It's a big goal. Like Timo said, our country is really small, and when we talk about music industry, there's lots of music in Estonia, not so much industry, and so that's the only place where you can present your music to such a big audience. So it's really important for us. And Estonian pre-selection is also very, very big in Estonia. It's a very professional and huge event, and most of the Estonian musicians have a specific date when you have to have your song ready. You want it to be very good. So it's, I think, thanks to Eurovision, there's a big part of Estonian pop music history that's written only because of Eurovision Song Contest is coming again. So it's very important.
Mm. Thomas, for you the situation is the same or maybe different? Which in percentage, what percentage of your income makes Eurovision?
Well, it's a part of it. It's the latest years I have a lot to thank Eurovision for. It's been a great part of it, but we have Melody Festival in Sweden. It's quite a big thing as well, and then it's the world outside. It's a part of it. as well. I write some songs from Spain and Korea or whatever.
Well, I also tried to have a performer of this year's Eurovision here on the sofa, but of course it was very difficult and impossible because either they performed last night or they will have to prepare for the rehearsals today. But in general, they are quite exhausted because they have to respond to all the requests, interviews, and photos from the fans. So I'm asking Ricardo, why are the fans only focusing, or most fans only focusing on the singers and not on the composers? This was a writing competition.
Well, I think it's because it has to do with visibility. Most people, Eurovision has a very visual element as well. It's a TV show. It's appealing. The visual aspect is important as well. There's a lot of hard work behind that from people, but it doesn't get seen. People don't see the composer writing the song, the lyricist writing lyrics to the song. They see what they see on television, and for many people, that is the only perhaps thing that they can actually visually conceive, or that they can actually see. So a lot of people only have that reference. I mean, they may know the names, but they don't know the person behind. They don't know the face behind the name. Whereas the artist is at the forefront. The artist is the interpreter, and that's who most people are in contact with, or that's what most people see. Most people don't have access to the people behind the scenes, don't have a chance to meet them. So perhaps this reflects somewhat on feeling closer to the artist, the interpreter of the piece, rather than perhaps the people that were the whole production behind the song.
Mm-hmm. So are the fans of the artists, or of the show, or of the backstage thing, the experience, that they are all seen in this context as someone who's taking selfies, as someone who is having a blog, as someone who is writing for the community that is staying at home?
Well, I think that's really up to each and every individual. Different people have different connections with Eurovision. Yeah, some love the artist, some love the song, but it's a place where we can all learn something about another country, another country's performer. I was once asked if my country did not perform at Eurovision, would I still support it? And my answer is, of course. I'm not here for nationalistic reasons. I'm not here to only to look at Portugal. Personally, as a fan, speaking as a fan, I love Eurovision in general, and it is very, very. I don't think it's ever happened that my country has been my favorite. That's never happened. Mm-hmm. So I really, that question would merit a different answer from everyone you ask. I think everybody here in this room would give you a different answer as to what it is that they relate to best.
Okay, so the EU is, of course, very happy that there are so many fans writing, having the coverage, having the multiplicators in the press center, so many devoted fans who do, in fact, press work without a paying. On the other hand, you are very depending on the accreditation. So as a fan journalist, do you feel that you cannot write critical things?
No. No, I mean, there are, even if you don't have fan accreditation, there's enough media around that you can get information as to what is going on. There's always something to write about, and there's always a lot to write about before, during, and after Eurovision. there's always a lot to write about. And even if you don't, like when I started, the first year that I wrote for Eurovision was in 2013. And by the way, I love the Estonian song.
Thank you very much.
And I was very green at the time. I was very naive. I didn't know how. No one had ever spoken to me about accreditation. I always thought that, I would never have access to being in the press room, being involved as a correspondent. And I wrote quite a lot about what was going on that year. And so, having accreditation or not having accreditation, I think still leaves the door open to write a lot about many things involved with Eurovision, because it's such a big event. There's so much going on. There's so many great people involved. There's so many conspiracy theories that there's always a lot to get out of it.
Okay, so now I would like to pass the microphone to Thorsten. You are a journalist writing for the Kölner Stadtanzeiger. You are covering Eurovision since 2010?
Yeah, 2011, Düsseldorf.
In Düsseldorf, yeah. So you are doing this for a living, and you are also writing very critical stuff sometimes about Eurovision. Do you feel that the fan journalists, the number of fan pages, the large amount of output is a serious concurrence for your journalistical work?
No, I don't see it that way. There's one golden rule in sports journalism, and that is no cheering in the press box. So I think it's two completely different things. I'm trying to look at the Eurovision stuff from a distance and trying not to be too much part of the scene, in quote unquote. So I think the focus is very much different. I think the general public, our readers from the daily newspaper, many of them switch on Eurovision once a year, but the rest of the year they are not too interested in it. And part of it likes it musical-wise and show-wise, but there's also a fraction of viewers who kind of see it as a freak show. I think this is very much perhaps to do with the German entry 20 years ago, Gildo Horn. Some people might remember him, who was really promoted like a freak show by his manager, who in cooperation with the biggest German tabloid ran a campaign, "Is this man allowed to sing for Germany?" And the idea was from the manager and not from the newspaper. So I think this has shaped very much the perception of the show for many people in Germany, besides the hardcore fans, who see it more like a freak show, who focus on the styling, accidents, and that stuff.
Alon?
I would like to add to that, sorry, and I will give you the mic in a second. As head of press, I'm often being asked about the Eurovision as a freak show. And I always say that when Lady Gaga wears a dress with meat, or whatever, it's amazing and it's brilliant. And when you do something not as similar, but unique in Eurovision, it's a freak show. And I don't get it. I mean, the Eurovision, yes, there are things that are so horrible, they're so good. And there are things that are absolutely brilliant and better than the Grammys and better than anything I've ever seen. So it's easy to see it as a freak show, but it's absolutely fantastic. And I don't agree with when people are calling it a freak show. I'm sorry, I disagree. It's a fantastic, brilliant way to show unique things.
I wouldn't say that the entire setup is a freak show, but parts of it are, and that perception of a certain fraction of TV viewers, I cannot give a percentage now, that would be just guessing, sees it a little bit like that, and many private parties are set up like that you switch on the television and you're trying to get entertained by some of the more freakish elements. Of course, there's great music as well. I never said there wasn't anything like that.
I think we're talking about two different things. First of all, there are cheesy things and there are very serious artists, and it's the variety. This is what is the most attractive thing of Eurovision, and the fact that someone called it a freak show 20 years ago doesn't mean necessarily that it's still valid today. I think what's great about Eurovision is the variety. But to come back to your question about journalism and block journalism, so to speak, or fan journalism, we're talking about two audiences here, I think. We're talking about a wider audience that is served by TV, by radio, by newspaper journalists who are following Eurovision, but are writing not constantly about it. And we're talking about the fans who are with Eurovision through summer, through winter, through sunshine, through rain, who are always there and who follow it from a different perspective. And I think both of them have their right to be there because the fans keep it alive. But without a wider audience, it would not matter. The burden is in a way on the broadcaster because they have to have a press center, they have to give facilities, they have to pay for it, and you have a lot of fans who try to get an accreditation as a journalist to be there, but to live out their fan being, so to speak. And in that respect, I think you have to, as a host broadcaster and as the EBU, you have to make a difference between the fans, the sheer fans and the journalists. But on the other hand, if you think of something like Vivi Blogs, it started as a fan magazine, but I think they are really intelligent, they are very enthusiastic, and the work they are doing is extremely good. And if there is something wrong, they are putting the finger on the flash. And if they like something, they're able to say that. So in that respect, the fact if you're a fan or a journalist doesn't say anything about the quality of the work you're doing. And in that respect, I think both are very credible as long as they take it serious. And the perspective from which they are taking it serious, that might differ.
I have to say that if you were asking about if there a competition or something like that, if I was running into a competition with one of those enthusiastic fan journalists, I could only lose as far as knowledge in detail, in statistics, in history is concerned. I'm very aware of that fact because for most of the fan journalists, as Thomas Schreiber correctly put it, it's like an all year round engagement and with the Eurovision Song Contest. And I do other things. I come from a music critic or rock critic background. Then I'll work in the news and current affairs department. So the ESC is just a small fragment of my work as a journalist, and I cannot possibly compete with the expertise of a really in-depth fan journalist.
Mm-hmm. May I get the microphone from Dr. Freiling? Because the EBU is providing with lots of content now for journalists, for fans, especially photographs and photographs for free. Is this not a kind of unfair concurrence for the professional photographs that are present here?
I don't know. It's not my field of expertise. I think the idea is to give the artists, the delegations, a chance to look as good as possible. And I think the idea to provide photographs and all of that of a certain quality helps you to portray an image of professionalism. And as much as we all like our mobile phones, a photo taken there is of a different quality. And if you can provide good photography and good pictures to everyone on the same technical level, it's just a help to make it easier, especially for the fan journalists, to get the same good quality like professional agencies. But just to one sentence on what was just said, I think this is completely it's a variety of the song contest, as the two said before. I mean, when I started my job, we would have never thought that a daily newspaper like Frankfurter Allgemeine in this week is every day having something related to the song contest. That the New York Times has a correspondent here, and they've nearly filled a page on Monday with an article on the song contest. I think the fascination is that the big media, the professional media, is realizing there is something happening in Europe once a year that is worth looking at, because it really is one of those few events where the whole of Europe comes together in a friendly, non-competitive state, and where we try to live what Europe stands for, in the very positive and not in the negative. And when you have the sports events, you always have a lot of competition. You have the hooligans, you have the very bitter fights between the teams. None of this is here. And when you look, like last night, as you said, everyone cheers for everyone. And last night I talked to the head of the fan committee from Turkey, and how sad they are that they are not participating. You are coming because you believe in a concept, and not because your country is the one that needs to win. And I think that is an experiment. The serious press, so to say, that only looks once a year on the song contest is realizing to understand that this is a social experiment that we maybe need a little bit more in Europe.
So, Alon,
I will add
Yeah.
to Dr. Freiling's what he said. When we're doing Eurovision with artists, sometimes we qualify, sometimes we don't, but we're always happy. And it doesn't feel like a competition when you're in it. It's not a competition, it's an event, and you're part of it. And you're happy for your friends for doing well, and they're happy for you if you're doing well. We never see it as a competition. We're never there to beat someone else to win. It's there to take part of, and it's fun, and we love it.
So, in your work as a head of press, how do you balance this, the requests from the public press, from the, let's say, serious press, and from the fan press, because you have just limited capacities?
I don't like the serious press and the fan press. Sometimes the fan press is more serious than the real press. So it all depends on the artist. And how much he or she or them are willing to give. And I'm always, I want to please the media because we need them for attention. And sometimes we do crazy stuff to get attention because you want to do well for your country and you want the attention. And it all depends on the artist. Sometimes you have a brilliant artist. They can give interviews like Mira and Noah and like Hovistar. And sometimes, like I did in Azerbaijan with Isabeau, which to save their lives, they couldn't give an interview. So you do as little as possible. It all depends. And it's up to me at the end of the day, because the artists trust me, whom to give an interview, when to pass, what to do, what not to do. Depends on the time, because doing Eurovision is tiring. My book is called 3 Minutes of Eternity for a reason, because you see those 3 minutes on the stage. Backstage, we work, those 3, 4, 5 months feels like eternity, and it takes 3 years of our lives doing Eurovision. And those 2 weeks, like in Portugal or whatever it is, it's the final 2 weeks, and you come exhausted, and doing the Eurovision is tiring, and it all depends on the level of energy.
Yeah, as we see, it's just a matter of time, as we saw yesterday in the competition. And we are slowly running out of that time. So I want to open the discussion to questions from the audience. Feel free to ask whatever you want, but don't expect that we are answering to everything. The lady, please. Wait, microphone? Yeah.
Microphone? Okay.
Yeah. The lady over there.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you, Sphere, for this conference. I would like to ask to Dr. Frank, the European Broadcasting Union, two questions about this rule that we have that says that the contest is non-political. I would like to ask you, we have seen some changes in this rule in the latest years of Eurovision, and it has been increased, this rule. I would like to ask you if these modifications, in your view, have made the contest less political. And I also would like to ask you, since we have this year this word non-political written twice in the rules, it is written actually in red in the rules, and so I would like to ask you what led to this alteration. Thank you.
Well, I think I said something on this earlier. The official line is, of course, that this is a song competition and nothing else as a song competition. The matter of fact is, as I said, if you ask for love for everyone, you are as radical as a politician as you can be. So we are non-political and we are very political at the same time. I think what we have to write into the rules is that, I mean, you saw the PR disaster last year that Ukraine faced with the Russian candidate, and I mean, there are always potential risks that someone is politicizing. Every country that is participating in the song contest more or less has political issues. Whether you have Spain and Catalan, whether you have Armenia, Azerbaijan, whether you have the whole relationship in the former Yugoslav region, so on and so on. There are always frictions, and if we don't, as a principle, say this is a non-political event, we are not willing to accept any political argumentation, and that's why we had a problem with the decision by the Ukraine not to let the Russian singer in, and we will always have that as a matter because we are saying we cannot apply political rules to the song contest. That's why we have every government of a winning broadcaster in the beginning have to write to us officially in stating that they are guaranteeing and welcoming every participant of the song contest to their country, whether it's a journalist, a fan, or a delegation. And we do not accept political interference into that principal decision. Whether we deal with a political matter in the running, it's a completely different story. I mean, there's always going to be challenges in many ways, and you cannot deny this, but that does not change the basic rule that this is a non-political event. This is not countries competing, this is singers competing.
Okay, we have time for another question. Wait a second. Yeah.
Which one?
I hope it works. Hello, Rolf Plattmann. I'm actually, Irving invited me as a photographer, but I would like to contribute to a different issue because I don't see the contest as a TV show as it was. I rather see it as a digital content platform with a TV show. And as the composer and the compositions have been set in the focus in this discussion, I would not give you, I don't want to ask a question, but give you an insight because I think that the expansion of the YouTube channel and of the Eurovision has been made on the back of the composers because there's a technical limitation of YouTube because the live show is a re-recording. And the studio recording does not match with that re-recording. So if that would have happened, then the composers will get their money because the composition metadata is embedded in the record, in the recording. So that's something that can be manually fixed. And so if this is a song contest and the composer is so important, I think that is something that should be done. So I think it's a very technical professional insight, which has to be checked back by your professionals. But I think this is quite important. And the other thing is that it's not transparent how many views are generated. Of course, I see how many views does the Eurovision channel has, but for give you an instance, the most successful video is not in the EBU channel. It's some Greek fan that uploaded a video, and there are roughly 1,000 videos of a satellite from Lena, and so also the video of Lena having the most views is not in the EBU channel. So it would be good to know also for the broadcasters how many watch time, how many views is generated within their countries, because if you control rights on YouTube, you can also use that for your own final broadcast show, promote your own content, if you run this content on your own content management system. So I'm consulting music artists to monetize their recordings. That's why I have these insights. Thank you.
Very briefly, this is a very complex issue, and we had lots of debate about the YouTube channel. I think that is always a matter in the relations between the member networks and the EBU. I think we want to make sure that the member networks and also their platforms and their digital exposure has the maximum access, because this is obviously one way to also get a younger audience through this. Every network at the moment has a big debate how to liaise in future with the social networks one way or the other. I think the outcome is still to be found. At our network at ZDF, we are stepping back. We are pulling out. We say we want viewers through our platforms and not through the social channels as much, because we can't control what is happening there. On the other hand, there are so many areas, territories, I mentioned Turkey, where there is no other way. If we wouldn't provide an access and an airing of the show where there is no one covering it for them, and there should be an international feed, so to say, that is accessible to others who can't see it through a network at home. So we're trying to balance that, but it's an ongoing question, and we haven't found the final answer. We have approved, again, in the reference board, to continue with the YouTube channel this year, and then we'll reassess. We want to really see the figures of the broadcasters compared to where YouTube has been seen, for example, and want to evaluate. So it's an ongoing debate.
So we could discuss like that, I think, for hours and hours and hours. And well, I get a sense that we have still time for one more question. But we will also have a final round.
Hello. Thank you very much for the interesting discussion. You were talking before about the way in which different people, different groups view the Eurovision Song Contest as a more or less legitimate event. I was just interested to know what your view was on the UK and Australian commentators who have historically taken a little more satirical or not critical, but a bit of a more external approach to the Eurovision Song Contest and the way they portray it to their audiences.
So you asking this question?
Yeah, just open to.
No, you have to pick one. So.
Oh, sorry. I guess representatives from
5, 4,
the press.
3, 2.
Yeah, the head of.
Which one?
Yes, thank you.
Well, I'm here. I haven't seen the broadcast yesterday. I've heard about the Israeli commentators. Some liked it, some didn't. I haven't heard it, so I can't comment on that. It's the first time Israel is using commentators. I didn't know what was said, so